It feel like you've kind of got to make big change, or this little details kind of from tonight over to tomorrow?
I mean, I think it's more just little details. You know, the car feels like it's in a pretty decent place. Again, just didn't get the grip out of it in that first soft lap. So some small tweaks, of course. You know, it didn't feel perfect out there, but nothing major.
And Oscar, how was that FP2 session? I know like, when you missed FP1, it's not so bad around here because the conditions aren't so similar. It looked like you were generally building up pace through that FP2. Just talk me through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got there pretty well on the medium. Just the soft just didn't get the most out of the grip on that first time lap. So finding my feet, I think. But yeah, clearly some things to try and improve for tomorrow. But I think after just one session, not too bad.
Lando Norris just dominated both practice sessions. But now, the FIA is investigating his car for an alleged rules breach. Oscar Piastri's engineers are furious and a leaked radio has sparked chaos in the paddock. Subscribe now, because this isn't just about lap times, it's about whether Norris McLaren was even legal in the first place. Friday in Abu Dhabi exploded with tension before a single lap was completed. Oscar Piastri was absent from FP1, stepping aside so McLaren Jr. Gabriel Bortolito could take the wheel. That wasn't unusual, it was a planned rookie session. But the real drama began when Lando Norris hit the track and immediately went purple. In just 3 laps, he was topping the timing sheets, comfortably faster than Verstappen, Leclerc, and both Mercedes. But what should have been a routine run quickly turned into something much bigger. As FP1 progressed, engineers on rival teams began raising eyebrows. Norris' straightline speed was noticeably higher than expected, not just compared to his teammates' average from previous races, but also compared to the Red Bull. Sector 2, traditionally McLaren's weaker point due to drag, was suddenly a strength. The whispers started. Had McLaren brought a last-minute upgrade? Or was there something else going on under the bodywork of the MCL39? In FP2, Oscar Piastri finally returned to the car but struggled to match Norris' earlier performance. On identical fuel loads and soft compounds, he reported instability at the rear and understeer mid-corner. Despite identical aero packages, Piastri's long-run pace was nearly half a second off. That delta triggered a detailed data audit, and it didn't take long for inconsistencies to appear. One particular radio message from Norris' race engineer where he's told, "We'll review the front-end settings later, stay aggressive," was flagged by FIA observers listening in. The FIA's interest spiked when McLaren submitted updated ride height and suspension parameters post-session, which didn't fully match what was registered earlier in the day. Sources close to the paddock revealed that the investigation centers on whether Norris' car was running outside the standard tolerance for front-end flex, a gray area that, if intentional, could explain the sudden improvement in rotation without triggering a scrutineering failure. The car passed initial checks, but stewards are not satisfied yet. For Piastri, the timing of the controversy couldn't be worse or better. If McLaren is found to have given Norris a mechanical advantage during FP1, it may not result in a penalty, but it would cast doubt on the internal balance between both drivers. The Australian, known for his calm demeanor, reportedly had a direct conversation with team principal Andrea Stella after FP2, asking for full clarity before Saturday's qualifying. He wants assurances that both cars will be treated equally and that his data is not being deprioritized. Strategically, McLaren was running race simulations through FP2, and the numbers were revealing. While Norris showed consistent pace over long stints, his tire degradation was the lowest in the field. Piastri's stint delta widened lap after lap. The concern from his side of the garage was that tire temperature buildup wasn't matching expectations, pointing again to a possible variation in suspension compliance. If confirmed, even as a minor discrepancy, the FIA could impose a warning or force changes before FP3. What's clear now is that Saturday's qualifying has taken on a whole new layer of tension. The FIA is reviewing telemetry, onboard footage, and setup declarations from both sessions. McLaren remains silent publicly, but behind closed doors, the atmosphere is heavy. For Piastri, the pressure is mounting not just to out-qualify his teammate, but to prove that if Norris was quicker, it was down to talent, not tweaks. One practice session may have opened the weekend, but one investigation might define how it ends. McLaren came into Abu Dhabi with a clear objective: lock in second place in the Constructors' Championship and give Oscar Piastri every chance to finish the season ahead of George Russell and Carlos Sainz. But now, with the FIA's investigation into Norris' car, that plan is unraveling fast. The issue isn't just technical, it's political. Any shadow over the legality of Norris' setup could fracture the internal trust between both sides of the garage right when cohesion matters most. If the FIA determines that Norris' car was operating in a gray zone, McLaren's entire Friday program could be compromised. Practice data is the foundation of Saturday and Sunday's decisions. Tire wear simulations, brake energy recovery models, and even DRS drag coefficients are all calibrated based on what happened on Friday. If Norris' setup is disqualified or altered post-investigation, McLaren may have to recalibrate their entire race model, losing precious hours of preparation heading into FP3. For Oscar Piastri, the stakes are deeply personal. Throughout the 2025 season, he has emerged as a future title contender, precise, composed, and consistently improving. But despite that progress, he's had to play catch-up behind Norris, who remains McLaren's main strategic reference. Now, with suspicions over Norris' car setup, Piastri's team has a legitimate concern. Was the Australian receiving identical treatment, or has there been a quiet performance split evolving within the team? The deeper issue is strategic continuity. McLaren's Abu Dhabi upgrade package was supposed to be minimal, just fine-tuned tweaks for tire management. If the FIA finds that the team implemented flexible suspension elements or adaptive aero without disclosing them fully, the implications could go beyond Abu Dhabi. Rival teams may challenge McLaren's previous results, and the FIA could tighten pre-session declarations heading into 2026. This puts McLaren's integrity, not just its speed, under the microscope. The garage dynamic is also shifting. According to multiple paddock insiders, Piastri's race engineer requested a complete telemetry overlay comparing both cars during FP2, an unusual move on a Friday, and one that suggests internal tension. While McLaren publicly maintains that both drivers receive equal equipment, actions like these show cracks. It's no longer just about who's faster, it's about who's being trusted. In Formula One, perception often matters just as much as performance. Then there's the psychological side. Norris may not be directly at fault, but being at the center of a regulatory storm is never easy. Any distraction, even a minor one, can alter focus, confidence, and execution in qualifying. For Piastri, it's the opposite. He suddenly has the underdog narrative. If he beats Norris now, it won't just be a qualifying win, it'll be vindication. And that momentum could flip the entire race strategy on Sunday. Most critically, this controversy has handed Red Bull and Mercedes a strategic gift. If McLaren has to change components or run less aggressive setups as a precaution, they'll likely lose pace. That could push them into the midfield battle in Q3, expose them to undercuts on race day, and force more conservative tire strategies. What began as a dominant start to the weekend now threatens to become a structural weakness, one that could cost McLaren points, positions, and political standing all in a single race weekend. The raw pace Norris demonstrated in FP1 wasn't just quick, it was suspiciously optimized. His entry rotation into Sector 1's high-speed chicane was more fluid than anyone else's, including Verstappen's Red Bull. What drew attention from engineers across the paddock was how the McLaren maintained consistent mechanical grip without sacrificing top-end speed, a notoriously difficult balance on the Yas Marina layout. This raised a critical question: had McLaren found a new way to exploit suspension compliance? The FIA's scrutiny is centered around front-end dynamics, particularly the possibility of microflex in the lower wishbones or front pushrod assembly. These components, when tuned to the edge of legal stiffness, can create dynamic camber changes mid-corner. It's a legal gray area. Teams are allowed a certain degree of flexibility for durability, but if that flexibility actively contributes to aerodynamic or mechanical grip, it becomes a performance device and potentially a violation. Telemetry from Norris' car showed unusually stable steering traces through turns 3 and 5. Typically, a driver makes micro-corrections due to understeer or track bumps. But Norris' wheel input was smooth, almost static, suggesting the car was compensating for balance shifts automatically. This behavior often points to either differential mapping tricks or, more controversially, suspension behavior that's absorbing dynamic load changes. The FIA is now reviewing whether this passive compliance breached the sporting regulations' intent. Another clue lies in Norris' brake traces. According to sources close to FIA technicians, Norris was able to delay braking significantly more than Piastri into turns 8 and 11, the two heaviest deceleration zones. That advantage may stem from better weight transfer balance, which again leads back to front-end geometry. If McLaren introduced even a millimetric adjustment to suspension travel or damper progression, it could result in exactly the kind of front grip boost seen on track. The FIA's investigation isn't just focused on hardware-software inputs are also under review. If McLaren ran dynamic ride height control via hydraulic actuators or preloaded damper maps, they must declare them pre-session. One theory being floated in the paddock is that a slight preset in the third spring allowed Norris' car to squat differently under load, reducing drag and increasing downforce at specific cornering speeds. These systems are notoriously hard to detect without full telemetry access, which the FIA now has. Complicating the matter further is the way McLaren submitted its technical declarations. Each team must log their setup configurations with the FIA prior to each session, including suspension parameters and any changes from previous rounds. According to internal FIA logs, McLaren listed their changes late after the session had begun. That administrative delay alone is enough to justify an investigation. Even if the components were technically legal, late disclosure breaches Article 9.1 of the Technical Directive. If the FIA determines that Norris gained an unintended advantage through unregistered compliance or non-declared configuration shifts, several outcomes are possible. A reprimand. A forced setup change before FP3. Or, in the most severe case, exclusion from the FP1 times. While that wouldn't affect grid position, it would affect the trust level between McLaren and the sports regulators. In a season where the margins between P2 and P3 in the constructors' standings are razor thin, that's a cost McLaren cannot afford. Behind every lap time is a mental game, and in Abu Dhabi, Oscar Piastri's calm exterior is now layered with growing frustration. Missing FP1 meant more than just lost laps. It meant missing direct comparisons, baseline feel, and crucial early tire feedback on a track that evolves rapidly between sessions. By the time he stepped into the MCL 39 for FP2, Norris had already set the rhythm. And yet, Piastri's feedback revealed a car that didn't feel like his. The balance, he said, was completely off compared to previous races. During FP2, his radio messages became more pointed. Rear is unstable under throttle, he told his engineer midway through a race simulation run. A few laps later, there's no grip mid-corner. Is this the same setup as Lando? The question wasn't just rhetorical. It was a sign that Oscar was beginning to question whether both cars were truly running with equal specs. His team reassured him, but a notable pause before their response suggested that the garage was dealing with more than just setup tweaks. They were managing optics. Lando Norris, on the other hand, sounded like a driver in control but also aware of the noise building around him. His tone over the radio remained clinical, if slightly defensive. After his fastest FP1 stint, he radioed in, "Everything feels good, too good maybe." It was a joking tone, but some engineers took that as him indirectly acknowledging the car felt unusually sharp. Later, after an aggressive long-run push in FP2, he requested confirmation, "Are we cleared on the front ride height settings?" A question that only adds fuel to the FIA investigation narrative. What's unfolding here isn't just a driver-to-driver comparison, it's a trust battle. Piastri knows that when a teammate consistently extracts more from the same car, questions start to form. But in this case, the data doesn't align with what the car is supposed to be doing. That's why his inquiries are more assertive now. He's not doubting his talent, he's doubting the technical symmetry. And in a team where both drivers are expected to push each other, such doubt can become corrosive if not resolved quickly. In the garage, the psychological tension is palpable. Piastri's crew is working double time to understand the delta. Was it driving style? Track evolution? Or were Norris settings more aggressive in ways that were never intended to be permanent? The fear in these situations isn't just favoritism, it's data pollution. If Piastri is basing his qualifying setup on skewed data from Norris' car which might be under investigation, then his entire race weekend could be compromised from a false baseline.